Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for lending me those ears. Today, I want to talk about the best carpet salesman in the world. Now, I heard this story, and when I heard the story, I just nearly rolled over because I thought it was just funny, but I thought it highlighted a great example of how to frame or sell a typical item that a lot of people would view as not having a differentiating value proposition. Now, story goes like this. Man walks into, I don't know, call it Lowe's, call it Home Depot somewhere, and they're looking to buy some carpeting. Could be a carpet manufacturer, who knows, right? But here's the way the story goes and unfolds, is that you walk into the store and there's the guy. There's the salesperson ready to sell you. And again, you go through all the questioning process. They ask you questions, you answer them. You ask questions, they answer. The back and forth goes on. And finally, the salesperson says something like this. Now, Victor, right in my hands here, and he's holding these three samples of carpeting in his hands, right? In his arms. And he's almost like hugging them. He says, right here, I have 3 different types of carpets that you can consider for your home. He says, what I want to do is show you the first one. He says, what I need you to do first, though, Victor, is I need you to take off your shoes, because this is what you're going to feel when you get home. So then I take off my shoes and I'm ready. He lays down the first carpet sample and he says, now that one right there has no backing, no padding. And as you can see, it's not really kind on your feet after a certain amount of time. And I can actually feel the concrete from the actual place underneath that thin carpet. He said, now that right there is good if you just want something that's, cheap, not going to cost you a lot of money, but again, not the most comfortable thing. Here's number 2. He says, now this one right here, has a little more padding. Lays it down. He said, this one right here has a little more padding, has some backing. Pretty good. As you can tell, you can feel the difference underneath your feet, that this one has a little more support. So this is something that you can really walk around on, so forth and so on. And then he lifts the second one up, and before he lays down the third one, he says, Victor, now this one right here is probably the best carpet you're going to feel. And then he starts like hugging and caressing this sample in his arms. He says, when you put this under your feet, it's going to feel like you're walking on some clouds and some pillows. This is so comfortable, yet so elegant that you are just going to love it. And he just goes on and on and on. And the more he talks about the sample, my brain is screaming, put it down. I want to feel it. Put it down. I want to feel it. Put it down. And he finally puts it down. And I get on this thing, and it's like, oh, man, it feels just like he says, like a cloud, like a pillow, and you wind up buying that piece of carpeting, right? Now, let's kind of go through this process of what he did, because I think it's fascinating. First of all, there was some buildup, right? He gave you the cheapest one first, then the second one was second best, but then the third one, that was like the Maserati of Maseratis of carpeting, right? And he builds up that anticipation. That's the key word. That's pure anticipation, man. The dopamine in your brain is just leaking, man, getting you all excited as he builds up this third one. On the third one, he was caressing it. He was talking about it lovingly. Like, man, you're going to love this one. And you can feel, if not hear, the passion behind his love for his product. And that becomes quite infectious. So how he framed the whole thing, how he sequenced the whole thing, cheap, not so cheap, the best of the best, and how he spoke about the product got you excited. Now, let me ask you a question. When you talk about your product or service, are you framing the conversation in that way? Good, better, best, right? That's a typical frame. Good, better, best. So that's one way of framing it. But also, notice how he used language, body language as well, to show you how much he loves his product or service. My question to you is, are you presenting with that much enthusiasm? You're like, oh, this is what I love. This is how I want to, you want to have this. You want to use my system. You want my product. This is what I want to highlight today. You have to sell the product, but you also have to sell the passion. And again, I want you to have this visual in mind next time you do a presentation. Give them good, better, best, but also make sure you caress your product or service when you're selling it. And that is it for this Sales Influence Podcast. Leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Let me know what you think. Also, Check out the Sales Velocity Academy if you haven't already. Great courses to help you sell more faster. And on that note, this is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard. When you love your product, you demo it right, and you know how. Take care.
Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.